up as well. So I'll let Jacob go ahead and unmute.
Hi, yeah. So I've had a lot of good, heartwarming conversations. I did have a difficult call the other day. This woman lived in her car. She's living in her car. But she said she didn't really need any groceries or anything. She was only interested in the housing lottery. Of course, I wasn't exactly sure what to tell her about that. Um, so about the housing, what is the answer I should be giving?
That's a really good point. And Kira or Yelba, would one of you be okay with jumping in since you have the more up-to-date information about the housing, or Joe, maybe?
We'll cover that during the PowerPoint presentation in a few minutes.
Oh, perfect. Were there any other questions or anything? I don't see any additional digital hands up. I see Gina raising a hand. What's up, Gina?
Hi, I just wanted to share, I mean, there have been good and more challenging experiences, but the good experiences include how people, if I talk to them, they'll say that I made their day. And I've talked to some very sweet, funny, lovely people, and they said, no, you made my day, or maybe we made each other's days, but that's been good. I thought it would be good to bring up probably the most challenging phone call I had, because I was talking with someone who was not happy with the center. I'm sorry. I mean, this is just this person's
No, it's important to share the challenging calls too, I think.
yeah, and this person had started going to the center a couple years ago, and she was disappointed in how it changed. And she said that it used to feel like a family, but it doesn't anymore. And I felt really bad because she admitted that she had a lot of frustration, and I felt like she was directing it towards me. And she admitted it. She said, "I'm sorry. I know that you're just trying to get feedback, but." She said that she felt very frustrated, and that was challenging because she did admit that she's been feeling depressed and isolated, which um, I mean, I, it's hard because wanted to, of course, sort of affirm that I would be writing everything down and then passing forward what she had to say, because I think it's important to listen to everyone's opinions and thoughts and feelings, and then see if things could be changed so that maybe people in a similar boat could feel happy too. But I felt really bad because I got cut off, because I sort of assumed that there would be a warning when like a 5-minute warning, like, oh, your call's about to get cut off, and then it hung up automatically on her. And I felt so bad because I didn't want her to think that I intentionally hung up on her. But what I do is that I think a lot of us probably just sort of casually write stuff down when we talk to the person so that we can focus more on listening to them. And then once I end the phone call, I'll sort of retype my notes and make them more legible before sending them in. But I saw the redial button and I wanted to call the person back immediately to make sure that she thought that I didn't hang up on her. And then it sent those really messy notes in, and especially because a lot of the stuff in the notes were things about how she felt very she felt forsaken, is what exact words that she told me. And all those notes, I felt really bad, so I'm sorry if when I sent those in it said all those things, but especially when it was messy. So that's something I learned from that experience, to make sure the notes are neater before redialing, because it automatically sends those in. And also, I think a lot of people here mentioned taking care of yourselves after challenging phone calls. So I did need to take some time, because that was a 45-minute call, or maybe I should have set a timer to check up on it, to make sure that I wasn't, I don't know, to keep more better track of time so that I can warn them ahead of time if that happens. But I've been talking a lot, so I just wanted to share the challenging experiences in case anyone encounters a similar sort of experience. So
Yeah, amazing. And thank you so much for sharing that. I know it's definitely, we're trying to focus a lot on the feel good kind of stuff, but it's also important to, acknowledge the reality that not every call is going to be super feel good, and people do have concerns that they're going to be very vocal about sharing. It sounds like you really handled that well, considering how challenging of an experience it was, especially with all of the weird tech things going on. But you called the senior back. You made sure that they felt heard, even though they've been having these challenges. So I think that's a really great way of handling that situation. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you for listening.
Of course. So we've got Mark Denton has a hand up, and then Dora, you'll be next after that.
Hi, I had a question, Sam. I ended up with a lot of people where I was leaving voicemails, depending on the time of day I was calling. I was just curious, when people get voicemails, have you gotten many calls from people who are responding not to an actual call that they've taken, but to a voicemail? Have they called back? I was just curious.
Yeah, we've actually gotten quite a few of those. Our senior services staff has fielded most of them. But what's been really sweet is that a lot of folks who are calling back and leaving a voicemail at the senior services number, even if they don't need something, they're calling back just to say thank you. So they'll call back and they'll leave a message that says, I got a voicemail from so-and-so volunteer. I don't need any groceries right now. I'm doing okay. But it was so nice of them to call, and thank you for reaching out to us. So folks, even if they aren't able to pick up right away, they're super appreciative of even getting those voicemails. And then Dora was next. Dora, you're muted, friend.
Okay, I have to say I'm calling from Los Angeles Center, Los Angeles. So, but then I got a few people that they say, I am in Long Beach.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, oh, okay. And I have to repeat, what do you need? The Los Angeles, LGBT Los Angeles called you back. But then I thought, how come I can say that if I live in Long Beach? So confused me a little bit when I was talking to these people. I didn't know what to say, but I keep repeating myself. This is from Los Angeles LGBT Center. And I left it like that. But I felt weird emphasizing that since they live in Los Angeles. Then also, I think was somebody else from Colorado. And then I thought, wait a minute, I'm calling to Colorado outside California, or this is Colorado Street somewhere. So like a couple of times was a place that I thought was outside California, and then the few from Long Beach. Then I didn't know what to say. In LGBT Center Los Angeles is going to contact you, and I thought maybe the center has a way to connect them, to send them groceries or whatever they are saying that they need. So that's one thing that happened to me. Another thing is that a few people, maybe a couple of them, they want money, they want cash. They want cash now. Okay, Los Angeles LGBT Center is going to contact you about that. What else can I say, I have to put that plug in front of me. And then that's kind of was my experience. And then I'm facing a little bit of cranky people. I didn't too much in some of them. And then I said, okay, I have to understand that. So that's, yeah, and then also good phone calls. Call me tomorrow, please. What is your name? All those kind of things too. But I'm not concerned about them. I'm concerned about the ones that are cranky, the ones that they don't want to hear about anything. What are you going to do for me? Los Angeles LGBT Center is going to call you back. So that's my experience.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to take a second really quick. We've got a couple messages about folks getting some audio feedback. If you're not talking, if you could just please mute your microphone so that we can get a little bit less of that reverb. But as far as folks who are not within, the LA area, that is definitely a challenge. We do have folks that, either have moved away or have previously traveled to the center from a distance or just live in a different part of the area. So for folks who are outside of LA, we absolutely just let them know that we will do whatever we can to help, but it's a little bit more of a challenge to get further away. So for example, like if somebody lives in Long Beach, we could potentially, we could look into seeing if there's any way that we could deliver to that person, but it's not guaranteed essentially. So we just want to make sure that we let them know that we absolutely see that need is there, and we will do our very best to get them what they need. Even if we can't have a volunteer deliver, we can certainly look into some other options as well. And so we're really working closely with folks who have those needs to see what it is that we can do, even if it's not, you know, through our regular Senior Angels deliveries or the sort of default things that we're offering, for a lack of a better word. Jay, I see a hand up.
Hi. So if you're calling somebody and the name says Bill, and it goes to his voicemail and it says, "Hi, this is Steve," or "Hi, or it's a woman, "Hi, this is Sue, leave a message," and you really don't want to out a senior, so to speak, do you leave the message or hang up, play it safe?
That's a great question. So something that I've kind of done when calling to volunteers, because obviously, you know, I contact many of you quite a bit. And if I'm calling and I'm not sure that it's you that I'm speaking to, a good rule of thumb that I would say is, rather than saying I'm calling from the Los Angeles LGBT Center, saying I'm calling from the center and just leaving it at that, or saying, in this particular case, I'm calling from Senior Services. In my case, I would say, you know, like, I'm calling from Volunteer Resources as an example. So for most folks, if they're familiar with the center and, like, you know, they're thinking about those programs, if you say I'm calling from Senior Services, the person that you're trying to reach will know that it's Senior Services at the center, or will at least be curious enough to call back. But that way, if you're concerned about outing them to somebody that they might be living with or anything like that, that person will just think, oh, it's like a senior center. They're not going to necessarily realize that it's specifically, you know, for the LGBT community. So that's a really good rule of thumb that I've used myself. If anybody else has any suggestions other than that, but that way the folks still get the information about where they can call back and who's trying to reach them, but without specifying that it's an LGBT organization.
Cool.
This is Michal. Yeah, one thing that I've been doing is I just don't use their name in the voicemail. So that way, if someone doesn't want to be affiliated for, you know, for any reason, then they can just say, "Oh, it must be a wrong number." So, like, yeah, I mentioned my name. I have been mentioning the LGBT Center, but I just don't say who the message is for. So
that's another really great idea. Thank you for sharing that. Jeff L.
Thank you. Okay, so I have two, make it quick. One is, what triggers someone being assigned a caseworker? I haven't been promised that would happen, but there's cases where I think this person has a myriad of issues and should have one. So I put that in the notes. It might be advisable to have a caseworker, but I'm not aware of the, you know, what the criteria are and if that will happen. And my second question is there currently available virtually one-on-one or group counseling for people who are, let's say, depressed and needing to talk to someone? And my last question is there a list of virtual offerings that I could have access to, so I can tell people specifically what they can take part in now?
Absolutely. So thank you. That's super thorough, and I love that. So Yelba did mention we're going to cover some more specifics about, like, what triggers, like, case management and things like that in the PowerPoint in just a few minutes. As far as mental health services at the center, we are still offering mental health services via telehealth. So if folks, I'll pull up that number and put it in the chat for folks. I believe it might be in the resources page as well. But we are still offering mental health services via telehealth. And we do still have virtual activities for seniors as well. And I'll put a link to that as well in the chat so that everybody has it.
Thank you very much.
Of course. Okay, I want to make sure we do still have enough time. You know, y'all were much faster than the little pop-up from Zoom. So I want to make sure we still have enough time for Yelba's full presentation. Do we have any really quick last-minute questions or comments before we move into the next phase of our little meet and greet meeting today? Yes, the PowerPoint will be sent out afterwards. Great question. All right, Chris, yes.
I'm not as quick either with the unmuting. I just wanted to say thank you. This is amazing. I'm listening in as the community outreach team has taken a frontline approach to doing community engagement, and we're working at the screening centers, and we're really there because people walk to our doors every day. The center is such a safe space for people. And people walk to our doors every day, still months into this, just not knowing where to turn. And they know that if I show up at the center, there's a good chance someone's going to help me. So I really, there's a good group of us doing this, but having all of you out there helping as well and actually making these connections is really, really great. And the ability for me to be able to listen really helps as well, because hearing the stories lets me go out and teach our teams about what's being said out there in the world. And then we can make sure that when someone approaches us, that we have a knowledge base and resources available for them. So kudos, it's really been great to be part of this today.
Thank you so much, Chris. That is so sweet. It's really awesome to hear too from folks who are really on the front lines right now. You know, some of us, obviously, this is not the center. This is my living room, but it's been so wonderful to hear the stories from everybody who has been making these calls and talking to seniors, and our folks who are still on site or still like working on the front line. So it's been a huge privilege to be able to hear from everybody. But without further ado, I would love to pass it off to Yelba, who has some wonderful information to share with us. Yelba, you can go ahead and take it away if you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Let me upload the PowerPoint.
We get an extra special double dose of Yelba in the chat today. So
That's, you know, tech has its own mind. And also just FYI, they're doing some fire drills here at the center today. So one may or may not go off during the presentation. So, okay, so I wanted to start off by introducing our new graduate intern. Her name is Lupita Duran Huaracha, Juaran Duran Huaracha. She's online with us as well. She will be assisting with Hello Club during her tenure here at with us at Senior Services through December. So this is her first look at a Hello Club training. I want to thank you all for being here today and for helping us out with all the awesome phone calls that you've placed. Our seniors have been really grateful and appreciative of being able to connect with someone outside of their home now that they're so isolated. And so what we wanted to talk about today was the next phase of Hello Club. So some of this information will be repetitive. It's just a refresher. I'm going to discuss a few modifications that we've made to the script that's uploaded onto CallHub, and also what the future of Hello Club looks like once we complete this secondary campaign with our seniors. So we have a new PowerPoint here. So the next wave of Hello Club is senior social connection. So currently we've been, doing the COVID-19 response. It's more wellness check based, less social engagement. So this next phase of Hello Club is going to focus more on just engaging the seniors and having just lighthearted, fun conversations with them. So we're not going to focus so much on the grocery delivery, the errand delivery. Of course, if they do have urgent needs, obviously, we're here to help them out. But the focus of this campaign will be solely to build relationships with our volunteers to engage them more. So for this campaign, we are calling it the Hello Club Social Call Program. So as I mentioned, it'll be more about social connection, less about the COVID-19 response. And basically, in simple terms, it's a friendly social telephone program so that our seniors can connect with our awesome volunteers. And throughout the PowerPoint, you'll see a few photographs of some of our awesome seniors here at the center. So what is a social call program? A social call program provides invaluable connections for those who lack support and may be at an elevated risk of loneliness or social isolation. So regular social conversations make a positive difference in the lives of participants and seniors. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship. Why now? Well, social isolation affects nearly 1 in 5 older adults, and research shows that the negative health effects of chronic isolation and loneliness, while harmful at any age, are especially dangerous for people over the age of 50. And for those of you who are familiar with our program, our age requirements are 50 plus. So our clients fall right within that range. Social isolation and loneliness are associated with higher blood pressure, increased susceptibility to the flu, greater risk of heart disease, and an earlier onset of dementia. So now on to our volunteers. Again, this information is repetitive, so this is just a refresher. Benefits of volunteering. The long-term benefits include a greater sense of purpose, increased self-confidence, expanded social connections, lower incidence of depression, and improved physical health. And judging by the examples that you all provided at the beginning of our training, many of you have experienced these positive effects. So that's really awesome. And I believe it was Gina who mentioned that they took time after their intense phone call to kind of reel themselves back in. So volunteer self-care, we want to emphasize that occasionally these conversations are very, I guess, emotionally driven, and we encounter seniors who, you know, are very lonely and depressed or very angry, as in Gina's situation. So we have to remind ourselves that we're setting these boundaries. We can't personalize these conversations. And as Gina mentioned, the senior knew that it wasn't Gina's fault that they were so angry at the center. So you just have to keep that in mind, that they're not attacking you. It just so happens that you happen to be the person who's listening to them at that point in time. So please try not to personalize these conversations. And if at any point you feel drained, you can always do things such as, you know, take a break from the computer, go for a walk, participate in any kind of meditation, or if, you know, your meditation, like myself, is watching like a really good episode of Friends or The Office, then don't be afraid to do that. It's totally okay. So again, just to emphasize boundaries, I really want to emphasize the fact that you're not a therapist and you're also not a doctor. So you really can't carry that burden onto yourself. And you have to be careful about blurring the lines. So at the end of the day, you are a volunteer and you're placing these phone calls to connect with the seniors. We discourage you from, you know, providing any kind of therapeutic advice or medical advice or even financial advice. Again, as Sam mentioned, we have resources to address those things. So what you can do is just encourage them to reach out to any of the resources provided. And I know one of the questions was, how do they connect with the case manager? So in the notes, there is a text box where you can include a note that says, you know, would like to be connected to case management. These notes are checked on a daily basis. And once we receive one that is a request for case management, we prioritize those on our list very highly. So they will be connected then with the case manager. The case manager will reach out to them. I don't want to give you a specific time frame because, as you can imagine, our case managers are really busy right now fielding not only phone calls from or requests from Hello Club, but also juggling their own caseload. But the case manager typically reaches out between 1 to 2 days. And of course, if it's a very high urgent need, we try to get to them within, you know, a very short time frame of receiving that request. So yeah, I think I received a few emails following some conversations where a volunteer was unsure of who would be reading the notes that they've submitted. And for the time being, Joe has been going over that data in the afternoon. So we get those within a few hours, and then the errands are addressed the following day. So of course, just as a reminder, we don't accept any gifts or gratuities. Dora brought up a good point. I have seen some requests that are, you know, I'm also reading the group chat at the same time. But as Doris mentioned, we have received some requests for financial assistance. And unfortunately, the center does not hand out financial assistance or cash. What we can do is when they connect with the case manager, there are a few organizations out there that are providing some financial assistance. So that's what we can do. But yeah, let me see. Is suggesting self-care considered medical advice? It depends on how you phrase it. So you obviously don't want to say with certainty, hey, Bill, you know, if you go for a walk, your blood pressure will go down, because you're not a doctor. So what you can phrase it like can be like, hey, you know, Bill, when I'm feeling stressed out, I go for a walk and it helps me. Are there things that you can think of that help you kind of relieve that anxiety or stress? Any other questions regarding boundaries and advice before I move on to the next slide? Feel free to place any questions in the chat box. Since I'm sharing my screen, I can't really see everyone if they're raising their hand. All right. So responsibilities, just a review. So the responsibilities of the volunteers are to place assigned calls to participants, treating them with kindness, of course, consideration, and respect. Assess the participants' health, housing, nutritional, mental health needs, and provides appropriate community resources. So I really want to emphasize this because we have gotten a few forwarded messages where the senior was looking for a particular phone number, which was provided on our resource quick sheet or resource slides in our PowerPoint. Don't be afraid to hand out these phone numbers. They're there for a reason. We've pre-approved them. Most of them are within the center. So please provide these numbers. It would help our case managers kind of decrease the work that they're doing right now, because there are some times where the senior just wants a phone number and it takes time out of our case managers' busy schedule to call back and provide them with the number. So it would be really helpful if, you know, if it's something like, I need to speak with my mental health provider at the clinic, the phone number is there, as Sam mentioned. If, you know, they need to speak to someone at development, you can, you know, provide them with Danny's number. If they need just like a hotline, we have the hotlines there that are national and county and citywide. So Sam says, just want to add that you can totally tell a senior, I'll look that up for you. It'll take me just a second. If you have the resource sheet open in another tab, you need to open it up. Could you resend this resource sheet? Yes, we can do that, Mark. And then Donald, I want to get to you said medical emergency while on call. If you mean that the person is experiencing a medical emergency as suggested in our PowerPoint training, then 911 would be the appropriate contact for that. Unfortunately, we haven't had any of those kinds of emergency calls. So would you stay on the call? I mean, it's really not, that's going out of your role as a volunteer. If you're 911 will ask you to stay on the call, but at the same time, you aren't really familiar with the senior, you can always, if you call not 911, but the non-emergency line, and you say, hey, I'm requesting a wellness check for a person that I think may need some assistance, they'll ask you for a callback number. You can provide that number, and then you can also email me immediately so that I'm aware of what's going on, so then one of our staff members can follow up with that person as well. Good questions. Okay, so back to the responsibilities. So as a volunteer, you recognize potential issues by listening carefully to participants' complaints, if any, and reporting them to the designated LA LGBT Center staff. And you all have been doing amazing doing that, keeping us in the loop. Complete any necessary documentation. So that's in reference to the blank text boxes that our provided within the script. And then I threw this in there because I'm assuming that Volunteer Resources is accepting a time log from our volunteers. So just a reminder to get those in on time.
We're actually, because we have technology, we're tracking your time through Call Hub for this. So
Wonderful.
So we are okay on that, but if that changes, we will definitely let you all know. So don't worry, you are not doing anything wrong if you have not sent us any like timesheets or anything.
Great. Okay, so Jeff is asking, some seniors seem like they don't have the wherewithal to make a call themselves or a computer to link to resources, unsure how to handle. The senior will tell you. If they just want a resource, they'll let you know. If they need assistance, they'll let you know. If they need assistance, just connect them or enter a note there that says needs assistance navigating particular resource, and we'll address that. Alrighty. So again, reporting incidences and concerns. So for non-emergencies or something that doesn't sit well with you, a red flag, if you identify any indicators of self-neglect, for example, ongoing medical conditions or refusal to seek treatment, or if something sounds like it may be abusive, please contact me, Yelba, at my email address there, and also see attached resources. In the meantime, while you contact me, you can always provide them with the resource. Yeah, we'll get back to them as soon as possible. So typically, like, I'm always on my email checking to see if any inquiries are coming in. So that'll be addressed immediately. For emergencies, if a participant is a harm to themselves or others, of course, you want to call 911 immediately. So some things you want to look out for are feelings of helplessness, some phrases such as nothing left to do, or I'm at the end of my rope, any kind of suicidal ideation. And as I mentioned before, if it's, you know, if you had to at any point call 911, please inform me as soon as you end the call with 911 so we can follow up as well. All right, so what's new? I did mention that there's going to be some modifications to the campaign and the script. Some of you are placing some phone calls right now. You may see some adjustments to the questions. So we're trying to phase out of the COVID-19 response. Once the social call campaign kicks off, you'll see that our script focuses more on social engagement and decreasing isolation among the seniors. The script will still consist of 1 or 2 check-in questions to assess the participants' current housing, financial, legal, mental health needs. That may look like a question that says, do you need assistance with the following? And there's a list of areas that are provided, and you can just check off if the senior needs assistance with any of those. Again, the data is checked daily, so we will receive any of those requests. Hopefully we have an article. Oh, we only have a person, so my first name. How would 911 know where to go? If you, Jeff, if you need to call 911, again, I'm hoping this doesn't happen, you are allowed to ask the person for their full name. There are some things where we can make exceptions. So if they need their full name and a phone number to get back to them, then I would say that it's okay in that instance to take down their personnel info. All right, so moving on to the script. So a majority of the script will consist of questions aimed at building relationships between volunteers and participants. So it'll be more conversational and lighthearted. So things like, you know, what do you like to do for fun? What are your interests? What are your favorite TV shows? Things like that. And during this campaign, there will be groups of volunteers that are assigned to a certain amount of seniors. So it'll be more of like a group outreach for our seniors. Seniors will be recruited through the COVID-19 outreach. So any of the seniors who throughout these campaigns that were associated with the COVID outreach, who are interested or voice an interest in continuing to receive phone calls from volunteers, will then be funneled through to the next campaign, the social call campaign. We're going to have case managers who already have clients that they feel would benefit from this type of program. they'll be referred over to the social call program. And then we're also going to promote Hello Club Social in our senior newsletter. So if any of the seniors come across it, they can email and sign up to receive phone calls, which is really cool because ever since people got wind of these COVID-19 phone calls, they've been inquiring to see if they were going to get a phone call and if they could sign up. And even some of our seniors want to be the volunteers who place the phone calls. So the conversation. So this is just a look at a modified question. So for this opening line for the social call program, it's going to be, we're going to approach the seniors so that we have their consent. Some of the feedback that I've gotten from volunteers who have placed calls is that after a certain question, it gets kind of awkward, or it can get awkward if the senior is uninterested or if the questions don't apply to them. So for this opening line, it'll read as, this is Yalba. My pronouns are she, her, calling from the Los Angeles LGBT Center. We're placing follow-up calls with our seniors to check in and see how things have been since they last received a call from one of our volunteers. Do you have time for a few questions? We are trying to see if the center might be able to assist you with any additional needs that you might have. And this gives the senior the opportunity to say, yes, I have time, or no, I don't have time. In terms of icebreakers, these may look familiar to you. So of course, how are you spending your time? How are you feeling? As I mentioned, you can discuss, any interests, hobbies. Once, as you have experienced, once our seniors get going, it's kind of hard to reel them back in. So there will be plenty to talk about with them. And also, I encourage you to be creative with your conversation starters. If you have a go-to phrase or question, like, those go-to party questions when you're meeting new people, feel free to use it and adapt it to our seniors' conversations. Something else that you'll see that's new to the script is a line that says, I wanted to ask you some follow-up questions regarding your health and needs. Is that okay? And this is also to kind of decrease that awkwardness of just jumping into the script and asking them personal questions regarding their health and needs. So if the senior says, no, it's not okay, you'll be advised to jump down to a further question and skip any of the personal questions. So here are the resources again. And we have our medical and mental health phone numbers there. We also have the county's mental health line as well. Senior services. So any inquiry that is related to activities and programming, case management, you can always refer them to the senior services helpline. This is checked daily. And then we forward these calls to the appropriate person on staff. So someone was asking about any activities offered here at the center for our seniors. I've listed the Facebook page for our senior services department. It'll be on the final slide, I believe. If you direct them to the Facebook page, we have a listing of all of the upcoming programming. There you'll also find our online newsletter that details any programming that we have available. So please refer them to that. And also, if they are a participant and are registered with us, they're more than likely receive our newsletter through the mail. If they aren't receiving their newsletter through the mail, then there's an issue with their mailing address. So you can, in the text box of the script, you can say, isn't receiving newsletter in the mail, or you can have them call, again, the senior services helpline, and they can leave a message saying, I want to receive the newsletter via mail. I haven't received it, so we can update their mailing address. And again, if you think that they are having an emergency, or if they believe that they are having an emergency, or maybe a family member or friend, you want to encourage them to call 911 or go to the nearest hospital or reach out to their medical provider. And here's a resource for our Trans Lounge. I don't have a phone number for them yet, so here's the email address. I believe they check it daily as well. And then Trans Lounge, if you go to translounge.org, register, they have online registration for resources, workshops, and any additional meetings. We have our national and county resources listed here. So feel free to utilize these. And now I can do some Q&A to answer more questions that you may have come up throughout the presentation. So I just want to reiterate that the data is checked daily. So any notes that you input into CallHub, we read at the end of the day. I want to reiterate that you want to be careful about blurring lines between being a volunteer and being a therapist or a medical provider. The housing lottery. So the housing lottery is something that we are working on how to address here at the center. So when they bring up the housing lottery, they're talking about the opening of the Ariane Getty senior housing that is being constructed directly behind our senior center. So our seniors applied to the housing back in March, and there was going to be a randomized lottery held at the beginning of May. So everyone is going to be notified whether or not their name was pulled from this drawing. Just to give you some context, you don't have to explain this to the senior. So that's the reasons why they're so curious about whether or not the lottery has been drawn. If they ask you anything about the housing lottery, please give them our senior services helpline number and have them leave a message, and then one of our staff will get back to them. So it's not your responsibility to address that or let them know, time frame or when they'll be notified, anything like that. You can say, I can forward your request or your question to the senior services staff, and they will get back to you with a response. If they are discussing anything about connecting with resources, needing assistance to navigate resources, you can always ask, are you connected with the case manager? And if they are, please encourage them to reach out to their case manager directly. If they're not, you'll submit a request so case management can reach out to them. Any questions?
Yelba, it looks like Donald is digitally raising a hand.
Okay, I can't see because I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to let you know.
Gotcha.
2 quick questions.
Yeah.
In addition to following the script, how long should we talk with our person? Is there a time limit?
I'm not sure if there is a time limit on CallHub. Is there one, Danny, Sam?
Yes. So we encourage people to spend whatever feels natural for your own inclination, but there is a CallHub limit of an hour. So you can't go over an hour. The CallHub system will cut you off. So we do ask people to keep it under an hour. But other than that, if the conversation is flowing, we encourage you to jump in and really dive in with that senior.
Will we be calling the same person again at a later date? Or is it just a one-time only?
The hope is to actually create this as an ongoing process. So the same volunteers hopefully will be calling the same group of seniors. So hopefully the stars will line up and you'll get the same person. But if not, at least there'll be a small rotating group.
So if they ask, will I be calling them back, I would say no, someone else from the center will be, but we're all involved with chatting with you and okay.
That is the best response, yes.
I just realized that I forgot to include another slide that we had on the original PowerPoint that has the number for legal. So I'll update that as soon as we get off this call so that it's all in there when you send it out to the volunteers. But yeah, the legal services line is there. Phone number line is there. And it's also, I believe, in the quick sheet, which I'll attach as well.
Thanks, Yelba.
Yeah.
And then Jeff L is also raising a digital hand.
Okay, Jeff.
Yeah. 2 questions. One, if we say we'll get a call back and we put notes that we think merits a call back, if a judgment's made by you guys that this isn't something you can help with or whatever, are there instances where you won't call back, where they won't get a call back, or will everyone get a call back?
The only instances where we haven't given called back are the thank you voicemails that we receive where they tell us everything's okay. If they submit a request that we can't, address and provide for, we're still going to call them to let them know that we unfortunately can't, provide them with $500 cash, for example.
Right. And then my quick second question is, occasionally, you've heard other people mention complaints. Sometimes they name names, and obviously their side of it and not the full situation. But I'm putting names mentioned, like this caseworker didn't call me back, whatever. Should I, or is it better to have a conversation with you or someone else when it comes to specific names? Because I don't know who's.
If they have a caseworker name, you can go ahead and, obviously I know it's probably uncomfortable to take down notes when it's such a aggressive conversation like that. You can always do bullet points. Senior is upset, hasn't been contacted by so-and-so case manager, would like someone to contact them. You can keep it brief.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Yes.
Yes.
Are there preferred times to call between like certain, like 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. or to 7 p.m. and Monday through Friday, or weekends too? What's the general preference?
You almost got it right there. So Call Hub, we have it set up from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., but you can call Monday to Sunday, including the weekends, of course. And we actually encourage you, if you do have the time to do on the weekends, we've seen that people answer the phone a little bit more regularly on the weekends. So yeah, if you want to start as early as 10 a.m., but we do cut it off at 7 p.m. just to ensure that we're not bothering people later into the evening.
Hold on.
We are at 12:03, so I do want to make sure we're being mindful of everybody's time. Obviously, if there are any questions that you think of after the fact or that we didn't address here, you're more than welcome to email Danny and myself and Yelba, and we'll do whatever we can to answer those questions. We're all very responsive to email, so we're pretty easy to get a hold of. But as far as what's going to happen next, we just want to make sure that we're letting everybody know what to expect.
I wanna add one more thing.
Absolutely.
So we have an official email address now for Hello Club, so that's awesome. If you have any questions regarding Hello Club that are non-urgent, please email them to helloclub@lalgbtcenter.org. Lupita and I will be monitoring that account, as well as one of our department assistants. Again, if you have an urgent inquiry about a senior, you can email me, you can call me, and I can get back to that person. But anything else, like if it's just, questions regarding like the last question about, what time should we be placing these calls, things like that, technical stuff, you can always email them to helloclub@lalgbtcenter.org. Our Facebook page is listed right there. If you haven't already, please take a look and see all the fun stuff that's going on via Zoom.
Absolutely. Thank you for adding that, Yelba.
Yeah.
Perfect. And just to emphasize once more with y'all have been part of an incredible process, and this is just a part of the transition of the process. So we've started these calls originally because there was such a high need of connecting our seniors with COVID-19 resources. And now the idea is that throughout these calls, we're either connecting them with caseworkers or longstanding solutions to address these issues. And now we are transitioning to something that cannot be addressed as easily through the LA County or throughout different resources, which is just that emotional connection. So you have all been part of this Hello Club, and we're going to be calling the same people, and it's just going to be slowly transitioning into more of a social aspect. So we want to thank you all again so much for being part of this. We've called over 4,500 seniors again, and that number is only going to be increasing as these programs keep coming. So the Hello Club will continue to exist in the future. It's not going anywhere, and we just wanted to emphasize that this is a part of the Hello Club process, and we are so grateful to have you, and our seniors are so grateful to be receiving these calls, y'all. So thank you again so much for your time. We are so grateful. All right, and I think that that should be it for our day today. Once again, we are going to be sending all of this your way, including a recording of the presentation, the training presentation, that resource guide, and a couple of more information coming your way. So be expecting that. But thank you all so much for your Thursday morning. Have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day. And we thank you all for your calls. You can start, we're gonna be setting this up to be starting and going as soon as we can. We will let you know the formal dates as far as what everything's going to be up and running.
Thank you,
all.
Danny. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much, everybody. We appreciate you coming.
Thank you.